truer words were ever spoken than by the priest at the Sacred Heart Church, 14th and Brady. At late Mass, the Sunday Jane and I went down there. Do you remember? War as hell turned loose on earth. I joined my prayers with the many thousands of other Ginis every day that this horrible thing would be over soon. Never thought I could be so tired and sick and still carry on. There are only two ways out. I'm praying that the Lord will grant it my way.
November 30th, 2023. My name is Tom Furlong. I am the great nephew of John J. Hines. He is buried here at Lorraine American Cemetery in Saint Avold, France, and we are here today to honor him. I could be wrong, but I think maybe the only person who has been here was his brother Francis, who was a priest and general staff that was always a couple hours behind where the fighting was. And he was able to visit his grave shortly thereafter he was buried. So it's a real honor and something we've been looking forward to for a while. Jack and Mary Alice, my two kids, are here with me, so his great nephew and niece. Also to have Jack and his crew all from Center College. They're studying abroad and in Strasbourg, which is only about 50 miles southeast of here. So I'm gonna have Jack introduce himself, and then each of the boys can say their names and where they're from.
I'm Jack Furlong.
Ramsey Cole.
My name is Nate Matthews. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia.
My name is Connor Hall. I'm from Lexington, Kentucky.
Max Spears. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee.
I'm Davis Wilms. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky.
So what we do, we have sand from Normandy, from Omaha Beach, and we smear it on the name so it highlights the name. Do you want to do it? Well, should be fine.
We are very honored to be here. It is important for us that someone on the battlefield is not forgotten. It's really interesting when you read and you look back through history, even in the Civil War, one of the things right before Gettysburg, on both sides, they knew where they were going to be in battle. They actually stitched their names into their uniforms. And their biggest worry was, I'm on some strange battlefield, nobody's going to remember me or identify me. So we want Jordan to know that we are all of us here today are recognizing him and saying thank you. We are representing everybody from the Hineses, Strucks, Furlongs, Cassins, Chalks. I know there's other names that I'm not thinking of right now, that this is important to. And I know that they would want to be here, definitely in spirit. Jordy was drafted in September 1943. First things he wrote is, I can truly say I'm glad to be in. I know it will be tough for a while, but I promise to make as good a soldier as any of you. He had 5 brothers in the military. I'm going to read what branch and where they were later, but it was obviously war, and there were 6 of 8 brothers, and there were also 2 sisters at the time. In late March 1944, Jordy sailed out of New York Harbor, destination England. He was in the Army's 90th Infantry Division, 3rd Battalion, Company K. The group was stationed north of Cardiff, which is above Newport, Wales. April and May were a period of intensive training consisting of mine detection, village fighting, assault on fortified position, which is where he was going to meet his demise, hedgerow fighting, and obstacle courses. At 10 in the morning on D-Day, the LCIs containing the 1st and 3rd Battalions of the 359th Regiment began to release the troops to smaller boats for their initial landing on Utah Beach in Normandy, France. As the troops waded ashore in hip-deep water with their rifles held high overhead, the beach was constantly being shelled as the 90th moved 400 yards inland to the seawall. Then later in the day, they moved to the assembly area at 4 p.m., a little more inland into Saint Martin de Verville, 2 kilometers west of the beach. After the landing, the 359th Infantry Regiment, 90th Division, pushed inland to Point l'Abbé, then Perrier, after which Geordie wrote, "It all seems like a horrible dream, and I pray it won't last much longer." I'm going to have Jack read the V-mails, there were these little postcards that the soldiers wrote to home. You couldn't say where you were, so they're always a little bit confusing. You always wanted to know where they were. We don't even know exactly where he was when he passed, again, because they didn't want that in any kind of form that the enemy would get.
Female from Geordie, July 19th. To Mom and Pop. No truer words were ever spoken when Jane and I went to High Mass at 14th and Brady. Do you remember? War's hell unloosened on earth. I join in prayer with the thousands of other GIs this day that this horrible thing will be over soon. I never thought I could be so tired and sick and still carry on. There are only 2 ways out, and I hope the Lord will grant it my way. Geordie, July 24th, to his sister Kate. I have gotten through things which only the Lord could have done. My rosary is a part of me. Always around my wrist, I will never give up my prayers. My darling Kate, this is all a horrible dream, and I pray it won't last much longer. My darling mother, the good Lord won't let anything happen to me, so please don't worry.
There wasn't much, if any, correspondence after that. They were pretty busy getting ready to take on. They basically were at a stop because they had run out of gas to be apportioned to Patton's part of the Army, which is where he ends up. In the first week of September, the regiment was attached to Patton's Army. They were part of Army Group A. They moved forward to participate in the Siege of Metz. Metz was basically an incredibly fortified, probably one of the most in the war. Jordan did die, was the Siege of Metz, where he was killed in action on September 8th, 1944. The following telegram was received by Mr. and Mrs. Dennis Hines, September 21st, 1944. The Secretary of War desires me to express his deep regret that your son, Private First Class John J. Hines, was killed in action on September 8th in France. Jordan Hines was laid to rest in Lorraine American Cemetery here in St. Avold, France. Lorraine Cemetery is the largest of interred American World War II GIs. This was in the Courier Journal, Louisville, Kentucky, at the end of September of '44, reporting this. Memorial Requiem Mass was said Monday morning in St. Louis Birchen Church at 9 o'clock for Private First Class Jordan Hines, 22 years old, U.S. Army, who was killed in France September 8th. Many sorrowing friends of the soldier attended the services. He's the son of Mr. and Mrs. Dennis Hines of 116 East Kentucky Street in Louisville, and was one of 6 brothers in the service. These are Walter J. Hines, electrician, U.S. Navy, Thomas R. Hines, seaman, U.S. Navy, Sergeant Frank M. Hines, U.S. Army in France. He was a priest in the regiment. Lieutenant William P. Hines, U.S. Army. He was in the Fiji Islands. Private First Class Dennis J. He was in the U.S. Marines in Guam. And there were two other brothers, Joseph and Brother Lloyd, and two sisters, Mrs. Kate Struck and Mrs. Jane Casson. On behalf of us, Jordan, we want to thank you on behalf of all of the free world. It's not overstated that you helped save our way of life for all the generations that followed you in France, America, and over the world. Lastly, you are in the Christmas capital of the world, so we brought you your star and Christmas tree from your great niece and nephew. I know all of the Cassons, Hineses, Chalks, Furlongs, Strucks, and on are with us today, wishing you a Merry Christmas and hope that you rest in a blessed peace.